Good evening, everybody. This is Darius Assemi, your host at GBWire Unfiltered. Welcome to another great show. Tonight, of course, my co-host Bill McEwen is on. Mike Carbasi could not make it tonight, so he has the evening off. But we have an awesome special guest, Deborah Rush, co-founder, CEO of Breaking the Chains. This is going to talk about a lot of stuff on human trafficking, Epstein files, other files. I want to ask her if she's known which names were redacted from the Epstein files that are being released. She'll talk about that. But stay tuned for a really cool show with our great guest, Ms. Deborah Rush. Okay, let's dive in. Slow moving storm pushes 353% of normal rainfall to Fresno. We got a lot of rain, a couple of inches, 2.5 inches. One of our in-house meteorologists on the Granville home site told me yesterday the number is 4 inches because his rain meter showed 4, but I think the official number is 2.5, 3 inches. There we go. That's the slide with all the data. Merced, Madera, Fresno. So to date, we got a lot. Look at Merced, almost 50%. Fresno, close to 40% of normal to date, which is just really fantastic. Okay, let's move on to our 5-day forecast. Look at that beautiful weather, a little cooler in the evenings, in the 50s and 60s. So enjoy the fantastic weather. Just getting out of the summer, hot summer days. And then what are you thankful for? Do you have a favorite Thanksgiving memory? Please send that to us. Share your holiday sentiments. We're going to be airing that next Tuesday night. It'll be a special Thanksgiving edition of Unfiltered. Go to gbwire.com and click on Unfiltered and share a brief one-liner or two-liners on things that you are thankful for. Why do you think convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine, or I should say Ghislaine Maxwell, procurer of girls for Jeffrey Epstein, is receiving special treatment in federal prison? Overwhelming majority said she has damaging information on President Trump. Do you think the corruption scandal involving Governor Newsom and Governor Newsom's former chief of staff will eventually involve the governor himself? Almost 2/3, not quite 2/3, said yes. Where there's smoke, there's fire. 32% of you said no, but that won't stop President Trump's Department of Justice from trying. UN Security Council to vote on U.S. resolution on Trump's Gaza plan. That happened yesterday. I don't know if you have the results of that plan. Of course, Hamas rejects the UN Gaza resolution. I'm going to briefly talk about this. Let's put up slide 11. Kind of what parts of Gaza look like, but most of it is demolished, blown up. Almost all of it in its entirety by U.S. taxpayer money to go blow up 60, 80, 100,000 killed. I don't know what the numbers are. Several 100,000 maimed, dismembered. And now, slide 2012, the Great Trust, the Gaza Reconstitution, Economic Acceleration and Transformation Plan for Gaza to build a new resort on the Mediterranean. I think all the Palestinians will get forced out, what we call ethnic cleansing with U.S. taxpayer money, and rebuilt. I don't know who's going to fund it. There was an article in Washington Post yesterday about potential rebuilding. And that's an image of what that place could look like. It looked like a nice land grab. Go and blow the country up. We use U.S. taxpayer money, and then we'll rebuild it as a beautiful resort. but we displaced, 2 million Palestinians. Hamas is a evil terrorist organization that has inflicted a lot of pain on its own people. But hey, 2 million people, just get up and go. We're gonna bomb the crap out of you, and then we're gonna force you to move out because we can, and we have all the technology, drone technology, and intelligence. Uh, what is that? The Israeli Air Force can hit a cigarette in your pocket from the sky. That's how accurate they can pinpoint folks down. One of the strongest military forces in the world, which is Israel, um, and Gaza is destroyed, demolished, and now it's going to get rebuilt. 2.2 over 2 million people displaced, some killed. We used to go into war. We went into World War II to liberate people from concentration camps. We just went and blew the shit out of this concentration camp. That's what um, one of our past presidents didn't call it call it the largest open air prison in the world. That was President Carter back 10 or 15 years ago when he wrote that book. What else we got? Let's put up slide 14. Remaining Gaza, 10 mega projects. And I don't know. I haven't actually read the article to see who's funding it. And then now we're going to switch over to President Trump has the power to release Epstein files with or without Congress. And the question is how much of the names are redacted. We won't know, or hopefully we will find out soon. What is this slide 16, Bill? That's a Reuters article. Are you familiar with the House Republicans' planned Tuesday vote to release Justice Department files on Jeffrey Epstein following Trump's sudden reversal? Epstein survivors, lawmakers urge disclosure as Trump calls issue a Democratic hoax, straining relations with GOP supporters. Resolution faces likely House approval, but concerns persist over full disclosure and potential privacy protections for Epstein victims.
So Darius,
yeah.
The vote was 427 to 1. There was one Republican holdout on releasing the files. Of course, Trump has been all over the place in the last few days, opposing this, after promising during the campaign that he would release the Epstein files. But political forces. Today, a poll came out from Reuters and Ipsos, and Trump's approval rating is down to 38%. That's pretty dangerous territory. It's still high among Republicans. Trump has said the only poll he cares about is how his base feels. Well, clearly his base is dissatisfied with his performance on the Epstein files. So, New York Times said, look, Trump could release the files with or without congressional approval. Congress made that moot today by, as I said, voting 427 to 1 to release. Still to be determined how much redaction will go on. And yes, legitimate concerns about the privacy of victims. So it's not as simple as making the vote and releasing it 2 hours later. There'll have to be a lot of thoughtful consideration put into what is released.
Thank you, Bill, for that. I'm going to bring in Deborah, and I know we have a whole segment coming up on breaking the chains, and Deborah Rush, and coming from a very small organization to one that is getting a lot of national attention. She's going to fill us in on all of that here shortly. But before we get to that, tell us what your thoughts are on. Let's get we don't need the slide. Let's just get Deborah on, please. On there we go. On the Epstein files.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I am definitely encouraged to see Congress moving forward on this. I definitely am a proponent, have been from the very beginning, of really honoring the wishes of the victims. And for me, that was at the core. For me, it was what do they want? And the moment that they unanimously came forward, I have had the pleasure of meeting a few, of working with several partners throughout the nation who are actually advocating for them. And these women are heroes and inspiring to me. So first and foremost, as an advocate, that's always my first concern is what do they want? And so it's been a resounding for me as well, release the files, right? The only person who could be harmed in a way that is detrimental or as innocent in any form or fashion is going to be them, no matter what comes out in the laundry, right? I think that for me personally, we know that right here in the city of Fresno, I have to leave unnamed, but we've had, council members in the past who have been involved in this. We have seen it happen at a political level. We've seen it. I have personally been a part professionally and in my own past with judicial officials, law enforcement. I mean, like I was sharing with Bill earlier, right? Sex sells and it sells to the highest bidders. And in this case, some of the highest bidders in America potentially could be revealed through the release of these files. And I think this is so much bigger, honestly, than President Trump, if I can be fully transparent. If you want my honest opinion, I think that if we were going to have something come out in these files that was going to be like this person was, actually committing a criminal act, the FBI and the DOJ would have already began to investigate that and do their due diligence. But I do think there is going to be, if everything is released unredacted, right? If we could get the full picture, there are individuals who have had a lot of indiscretions financially. I know that Epstein talked a lot about throwing people under the bus. He gave a lot of indication that he had some pretty heavy weights against certain people in power. And so what that was may not come down to and I think people need to understand the trafficking of these women. I do believe they would have spoke out and said, this happened with this person. But I think that, again, those indiscretions could range all over the board of what we would see and from all different people in power.
Before I bring Bill in, who do you think is on that list? If you were to take a guess, I mean, you said powerful people. I mean, we've seen all kinds of pictures and videos of different, very, very, very high-ranking United States elected folks.
Yeah, I couldn't make that. I mean, I would just be throwing stuff at the wall, to be honest. And I've stayed very close to this case. I think that there's even people that we haven't mentioned that there would be indiscretions with. And again, like I said, when we think about some of the financial discrepancies we've seen with President Trump or even other people on both sides of the aisle, I'm going to sound a little ghetto, but I always tell people this: I didn't bang red and blue in the streets. Right. And I don't do it now. I'm for people. I'm very much an independent thinker, regardless of what my political registration is. And so I do think that, again, across the board, there are some pretty powerful people who have indiscretions that could be disclosed. And that's what was holding these files back.
Deborah, why do you think some of these victims, I mean, they were young boys and girls, right? Why do you think some of these victims haven't come forth to date and say, hey, I was a victim. I was, 14 or whatever I was age, and now it's 10 years has gone by, and here's the people that I was forced to have sex with.
Well, I think it's the same as we see within those who are impacted by human trafficking right here in the central San Joaquin Valley. And they may not even have people of power who victimize them. It's the first level of the first chain, right? Not to be too cliche, that we see that's really binding them is shame and embarrassment. I mean, if you think about it, it's difficult for us to share with another individual any type of tragic, embarrassing, or shameful act. Could you imagine having the worst days of your life, the worst possible side of who you are, and there's all this confusion that comes with human trafficking? Like, was I a victim? Was I complicit? It's so complex and complicated that to disclose is not just painful and difficult, it is one of the most courageous acts that any one person, that a victim can embark on, but it's also the scariest. And I know that personally. Now you add the extra layer of it being somebody of power and authority. You know, it's I mean, could you even imagine? I mean, we all, if we're honest, and I'm not a conspiracy theory nut, I don't go down the rabbit hole too often, but we all question if Epstein really did this to himself, right? We all question, you know, a lot of different things, and there's a lot of people in power, and that's scary. And like I said, quite frankly, at the end of the day, a lot of times, and we see this with victims of rape, sexual assault, the same reason children don't often disclose molestation. You know, when I'm speaking with groups of adults and trying to help them better understand what potentially the children that we serve have been through, or what children they're working with have been through, I let them know that statistically, a majority of them in that room have been sexually assaulted or abused at some point, and only 7% of them will disclose.
Wow. That's incredible. Bill?
Yes, Deborah. So I had a question for Deborah, and it's a subplot of the Epstein files, which is, and I know you're aware of this, what do you think of the treatment of Ghislaine Maxwell being treated like a pampered queen in federal prison, getting meals delivered directly to her cell, lots of access to visitors, looks like total suspension of many basic prison rules for her, including unlimited exercise and that kind of thing. I know you're
I
aware
think
of it. What's your reaction?
I think, just like I said, just like that paperwork, I think that she also has information on very powerful people, and that's one side of it, right? That at the far extreme, she has information, and people want to treat her well, so that information doesn't come out. And I also think that what has been very, not to pause that right there, what's been very difficult as an advocate here in this field was as I came to realize how, and no offense, I know we're having an all male cast outside of this, but how misogynistic um, men who are engaged in the sex trade actually can be. Right? There's narcissistic tendencies. There's a lot of false belief systems. I understand all of that, but the fact of the matter is that um, I believe that even if just by some stretch of the imagination, which I don't think is true, that somehow she doesn't have information on very powerful people, right? That at the very least, they are sympathizing with her because of their own disgusting habits, tendencies, and activities that they've engaged in. And that is at the very least. But no, my vote, if I had to bank my money on something, is she's definitely got information that she's not sharing yet.
And I'm surprised that she hasn't decided to hang herself.
I don't think Epstein decided to hang himself, and I'll say that publicly.
Well, I mean,
I
I
don't.
think
I don't
most.
believe for a second. I mean, if we believe that, I'm not a conspiracy person, but this
I,
is somebody who was already. I know I'm going to start all the conspiracy. Everybody's going to be like,
no, no,
yes,
no, Deborah. I
but
think.
it's true. I don't
Yeah,
think he did it.
I think you're saying what most folks, at least in my opinion, think. But I was surprised that hey, I'm not saying her name correct. Ghislaine.
Because I don't care. Miss
Ghislaine
Maxwell.
Maxwell, Ms.
Yeah, I don't care.
Maxwell, is
Yeah.
still upright, and because she knows a lot from different from Israeli intelligence information to CIA to folks that have been in and out of the Epstein Island, etc. Okay.
So,
Anything else on this? Go ahead.
Darius, don't you
Yeah.
think that if two people died in prison, that would be a little
I
too
was
much?
thinking the same thing. Yep.
But maybe she doesn't die in prison before she could. There's all kinds of stuff. People can have heart attacks. I would
Well,
could
and
die
the
of
thing
natural causes.
Well, the thing with Epstein, though, you have to remember he was already labeled a sex offender, so this wasn't new to him. Uh, Another big issue for me in this situation is he wasn't facing sentencing yet. He hadn't even been to trial. He had narcissistic tendencies that we are all very much aware of. So for me to say he wouldn't give it a good old college try to at least see where it's going to happen, like if his suicide would have happened more towards after being sentenced or knowing he was already found guilty or going to be found guilty, that would be different. But I think it
Yeah.
was too early in the
Okay.
game for him to take himself out.
All right, we're gonna move on. We're gonna come back to Deborah Rush here in a couple of minutes. Uh, Let me put slide 19. Bill referred to it quickly. President Trump's approval rating fell to 38% since his return to power. 26% of Americans uh, say Trump is doing a good job at managing the cost of living, down from 29%. U.S. consumer prices up 3%, even as the job market has weakened. 65%, including 1 in 3 Republicans, disapprove of President Trump's performance on the cost of living. Do you have any more thoughts on that, Bill? Yeah.
Darius, I think this is sticking with people because Trump made it such a big part of his campaign. Clearly, with all the money injected into the economy to rebound from COVID-19, Biden administration tried hard to deal with inflation, but they didn't want to cause, the economy to retract in any way. You understand this, Darius. There was a lot of unspent money still out there. Um, Inflation was going to be inevitable. Trump said, hey, I can corral it. On day one, all your prices are going down. And they've just been going up and up and up. And people also who used to, they'd see the word tariff and they'd stop reading. The American people now have a greater understanding of tariffs. And I think it's safe to say the great majority of Americans view tariffs as a tax on them. And it's these combination of things. He promised to corral inflation, and then he did this tariff thing, which to this day I still don't understand. And that was a self-inflicted wound. So people ignore a lot of what Trump says. They get tired of the back and forth and being buried by the fire hose of constant commentary coming out. But it stuck with them that he promised he'd do something about grocery store prices.
Well, didn't the president say he may be giving households $2,000 a month from tariff money?
He said that, and then his secretary of the treasurer said, hold your horses. I'm not so sure we can afford that.
Oh, so it's going to be $4,000 a month.
No,
Okay.
you're not going to be getting $2,000 is basically
Okay.
what Scott Bessent said.
Got it. Bill, this is one of your articles. Federal judge blocks Texas from using new congressional map. After
Yes,
all that,
yes, after all that, surprise today, it was a federal, it's at the appellate level. It was 3 judges. It was a 2-1 decision. And they said basically the maps that were drawn are racially gerrymandered, and that's not allowed under the Constitution. So there's implications for California's remapping as well, even though it was voter approved. We know that the Republicans challenging the passage of Proposition 50 have said that it involved racial gerrymandering. So there may be the door open for California to be overturned as well. And I have to report the Republican reaction to what happened in Texas. The Attorney General, Pam Biondi, says on to the Supreme Court. Lots of Republicans asking for the Supreme Court to make one of those quick decisions, which the Roberts Court is known for. And basically, they have about 20 days to decide because of the deadline for filing in Texas. So I don't think this is the end of the story. And Texas Republicans definitely pinning their hopes on the Supreme Court to save their bacon.
okay, what about this new idea on how to solve the housing crisis?
Well, Darius, this story, I mean, I had no idea it was coming. I wasn't even aware of it. Readers have had tremendous interest in it. Culver City, California passed legislation, local legislation that said if you build a mid-rise apartment complex, you only need a single stairwell, a single staircase. California law forever has been, once you get past a couple stories, you need 2 staircases. The advantage of 1 staircase, well, there's actually many advantages. You can put more units in there. The units can be bigger. More of the units can have windows. just nicer layout and functionality. And the backers of this point to many other countries around many other countries around the globe that have similar rules and don't have problems with, if there's a fire. Obviously, if you build high rises, then you're going to need, the double stairwell system. So thus far, California seems to be, in Sacramento, willing to let Culver City do this. And amazingly, Darius, the fire department in Culver City did not oppose this.
Wow, that's some innovative stuff coming out of Southern California. I wish City of Fresno was paying attention on their VMT tax, which every new home buyer is going to potentially be subjected to. Different rates in different parts of town. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to Union of Community College Instructors approved a no confidence vote against State Center Community College District Chancellor Carol Goldsmith. We have a quick video to show you. Is this the unions going after somebody that is going to retire? They want her to step down. That's Chancellor Goldsmith, or what is the real issue here? Let's play the quick video. I think Bill may have a commentary, and then we're going to move back to Deborah Rush.
Today's announcement was the reading out of a vote of no confidence against Chancellor Carol Goldsmith. We were directed to do this last Thursday by our membership. The overarching impact of this leadership is the creation of a toxic, autocratic culture that has fundamentally eroded trust in the district's governing and administrative bodies. The faculty consistently described Chancellor Goldsmith's leadership as rife with corruption and nepotism. The membership of the Federation directs and authorizes the Executive Council of the Federation to call for the immediate dismissal of Chancellor Carol Goldsmith, irrespective of her retirement date.
There we go. Thank you, Eric and Paul. Okay, Bill, any comments on this?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. The union's in negotiations. The union has been pounding this for about the past 2 years. I chalk it up to union negotiations. Basically, it all gets back to the money. The union made a big point of saying it was a unanimous vote, this no confidence statement.
Okay.
Unanimous. Darius, there are 1,250 members in this union, 250 voted, so about 18%. I'm not impressed by this. Is Carol Goldsmith, has she been the perfect chancellor? No, no one can. Think about how big this district is, how varied the interests are. To me, she's been very inclusive in what she's done. And I think this is a bunch of community college instructors wanting attention, just like your 2-year-old wants. The difference, the 2-year-old isn't getting an allowance yet.
Okay. Got it. Thank you, Bill, for that. I'm going to bring Deborah Rush back, and Cam Loy's got a comment from a few minutes ago. I agree with Deborah on all accounts she has mentioned. Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell also loves herself too much to kill herself. She is hoping for Trump to commute her sentence. But, I mean, things happen to folks who have a lot of information about a lot of different people. I'm hoping nothing will happen to her. And Deborah Rush says she's not a conspiracy theorist, but she thinks Jeffrey Epstein did not actually hang himself. But we don't know exactly what happened. So we
don't know.
We don't know.
A disclaimer, don't hold me to
We
that,
don't
but
know.
if there was any
We don't know what
conspiracy,
happened.
we don't know.
We don't know
but
what happened.
We don't know.
We're not going to make any judgments. We don't know what
We're not going
happened.
to make any judgment calls.
Yeah,
but-
he may have liked to do that, may not have. We're not sure. So don't take it with a grain.
Yes,
A big grain
Yes.
of salt. Okay.
a big grain of salt. Yes.
All right. Now let's talk about breaking the chains. There's a lot of cool things happening Unchained Hope, $100,000 matching funds from producers. That's the campaign.
Yes,
Look at that.
yes,
Tell
yeah,
us,
yeah.
tell us what's, and let's just keep Ms. Rush on the screen and that beautiful. There we go. Perfect. So tell us what's going on.
So first and foremost, we are just so thrilled with all of our supporters, and Producers Dairy has, as Granville Homes, just continued to be such a generous supporter to what we do here in our community. And so they have generously are matching $100,000, dollar for everybody who gives between November 15th and December 31st. I think it's really important that everybody understands we have a lot of giving opportunities coming. Breaking the Chains is over 90% privately funded, and we very strategically stay in that funding stream. And so we rely heavily on our our company contributors, our individual contributors and supporters. So we're really excited about this. We have seen numbers, unduplicated numbers that have increased in certain areas and decreased in others. So some of the things, as you could see, like from the services that are up here, as disheartening as it is to know that we have served we have provided, over 625 individuals with direct services just up until October 31st of this year. We've actually seen a shift. So I really want to give a shout out to our law enforcement. Definitely under the previous leadership of our now mayor, Jerry Dyer, Mindy Casto, everything, Mark Salazar. I think he does not get enough credit in how he has helped really re-strategize the gang unit. Breaking the Chains, being one of the primary service providers to law enforcement, has actually seen a decrease, a slight, ever slight decrease in gang trafficking here in Fresno. That's huge. That is significant, and that speaks to our magic unit and what they have done in our area to really push that, attempt to push that out. But what is disheartening is we have seen an increase, a pretty significant increase in younger individuals beginning to engage in what is known as self-exploitation. And that's very, very scary. These are children who are being culturally desensitized to sex and violence. We've talked about that many times, and beginning to normalize this behavior in such a way. They are being lured out through gaming platforms, OnlyFans, that are systemically really grooming them into more tragic and detrimental, unhealthy lifestyle choices, ultimately leading into sex trafficking. And I tell people all the time, if there is a gang member that is violently trafficking an individual, which is at the highest, extreme of violence of what we see, or a 14-year-old that's coming in because they are in the foster care system and have been self-exploiting in order to have a place to sleep, a meal, we see that all the time. The level of trauma they've experienced is the same. I think people need to understand, and I'm kind of going on, so stop me if I need to, but
I need to actually stop you for a minute. 20% of all
Yeah.
trafficking victims are children. Is that in Fresno or just nationwide or worldwide? Where is that stat?
so for us, it's 37%. So
Wow.
I don't know where you got those numbers, but Breaking the Chains has recently been working on numbers. We need to fine tune, but 37% of our population is entered under the age of 18. And so that's very concerning. And we're seeing those numbers again dropping with self-exploitation. I think this is an important trend that we really need to get ahead of, right? We know we've been talking for many years about the average age an individual enters into this is between 12 and 16 years old, usually groomed by a third party. But we are, and I want to sound that alarm, seeing an increasing number of kids getting involved seemingly just from their peer groups. And it is a third, but it's just peer influence, and they're creating their own ads. They're going on to OnlyFans. They're lying about their age. They're doing these things. And typically, which leads into our partnership with the Fresno Mission and so many others, these are foster children. These are children who do not have the support, or they're coming from very broken environments, and they are doing whatever they think they need to do to survive. And what I was going to say is what's really important is us really also looking at these laws. And I'm really excited about, I think it's AB, forgive me for not remembering, AB 379, that is allowing, as of January 1, for laws to be strengthened in against buyers, because buyer violence is often worse than trafficking violence. And I think that that's something that's lost on most individuals. They just see this trafficker who's just beating this person all the time, forcing them into this. And although that can be the situation, across the board, no matter if you have a trafficker or not, buyer violence is the same.
Could you explain buyer, by buyer, you mean the people that are paying for the service?
Yes, absolutely. So, as everybody knows, or everybody might not know, I was violently gang trafficked, which is one of the most violent forms of trafficking that we see domestically. Okay.
Okay.
But the violence that I experienced in my time in trafficking was still worse. And this is replicated across the board to this day, what we see here at Breaking the Chains, by buyers, right? That's repeated rapes, sexual assaults, robberies. These type of things are happening quite often. Those who are engaged in the sex trade, especially our kids, are easy targets because they're engaging in an activity that they would be too embarrassed, or because of the criminality, unable to share with somebody else. So essentially they can be raped, robbed, sexually assaulted, and they're not likely to tell somebody. And they're more likely to be more complicit. I know this is a very heavy topic, but when I was engaged, it only took me a couple of times to be brutally and bloody assaulted, right, by a buyer before I realized that the moment somebody told me to do something, I was getting it over with. And that's hard for me to admit, right? I adapted very quickly that I'm not going to fight you. I want to walk out of here.
Thank you for that. Before I bring Bill back on, Camilloy says, explain the law, please. Is that, I think that was,
Yes.
yeah, would you explain that?
So
and then
we
Bill.
are very, yeah. So what most people don't realize is that several years ago, the ability for, or I don't know I don't want to put the number out there and then be corrected by somebody, but a few years ago to several years ago, the ability for law enforcement to arrest people or engage with them for loitering, right? For the purchase by purchasing to loitering to purchase sex, right? Not just sell sex, was removed. And so you really had to have some sort of undercover operation or something of that extreme in order to entrap buyers, right? That has gone away. And now, starting January 1, our police departments across California will now be able to go out in force into our streets. And whenever they are just visually seeing somebody who is obviously attempting to purchase sex for sale, they will be able to nab and grab them, right? They'll be able to cite them, which puts them into the justice system. And again, this is huge for us because human trafficking is all about profit and loss, supply and demand. And if we curb the demand, there will be no need to provide the supply. They will have to go somewhere else.
Great point.
They'll have to look for something else to sell other than our children.
I think Bill has a couple of comments, but I want to thank Producers Dairy and which is the Shahadi family, if I'm not mistaken, for stepping up with the $100,000 match between now and the end of December for dollar that goes to Breaking the Chains. And any kind of donations, checks coming in. How can somebody donate to Breaking the Chains, by the way? Go online?
Yeah, you could just go online to btcfresno.org. I'm sure you'll have the link up there, and donate is on every page of our website. Just click donate. All incoming donations will be tracked towards this matching grant.
Great. So btcfresno.org/donate. Bill McEwen.
So I had a question, Deborah. What's your reaction when someone as prominent as Megyn Kelly is out there promoting the idea that 16 and 17-year-old girls are adults, actually adults, they're not children, and we really shouldn't be concerned about this if they're engaged in prostitution?
Regardless of who it is, I would say that if that is your belief system, then you need to take a new course in biology and really understanding brain development, and that children's brains do not fully evolve actually until the age of about 25. So I wish I could change the laws for 18. And so in understanding that scientifically, this is without absent of any type of trauma, any type of adverse childhood experiences or life experiences, do not have the capability to rationalize and make logical decisions at the capacity that someone like myself or you would.
So, but
Yeah.
we see this all the time where
Mhm.
this pushback is recycled. You know, the idea that,
Mhm.
oh, they're really women, they're not children. The other thing we see recycled all the time is prostitution as a victimless crime. Can you address that? And, you know, how do you feel when you hear those two ideas
Mhm.
come back or come back in every 5 or 6 years?
It makes my skin crawl. As you guys can see from the picture behind me, I've even lost my own child to this. I think that there's probably few things that are more like a nail on the nails on a chalkboard to me than that. And it also shows ignorance. And I don't mean that to shame anybody, but it's complete ignorance. If you do not understand that fundamentally an individual who has to exploit their own body in order to receive any type of monetary reimbursement is in a very desperate situation. And you, quite frankly, are taking advantage of that if you're engaging that. And wherever in someone's mind that doesn't click, they really are just very ignorant to the situation and have a lack of social emotional intelligence. That's just a fact.
So, Deborah, have you ever known anyone that was involved in trafficking that had a quote unquote pretty woman, happy ending?
No, I have not. I've never met the pretty woman. Happy ending. I actually would to really defer back to. I really loved the Netflix, and again, disclaimer: this may be it's too much probably for children to watch. But if you are a Megyn Kelly or you are anybody in that nature, and you really need to understand, watch the Pamela Anderson special. And even for a woman who was seen as a sexual icon and would be this person that you would imagine just did so well, her biggest regret in the end and the way she talks about the emotional degradation and the way she struggled after that from that life experience can go to show you that it doesn't matter what the dynasty looks like behind the scene, the fracturing for that person emotionally and psychologically lasts for a lifetime.
I'm going to bring in, if there's nothing else, Bill, Deborah, a couple of comments. English Legal said, Bill, you misrepresent what Megyn Kelly said. Listen to her and the context. I haven't seen or heard that, but is there anything else she talked about, Bill, Megyn?
No, she was promoting this idea by quoting what somebody else said. She
Okay.
injected it into the conversation and she didn't dismiss it. If she wanted to promote it, to put it out there for discussion, and then she said, hey, the guy that's saying this is crazy, that would have been fine. So actually, the commenter is misrepresenting Megyn Kelly's conversation. She
Got it.
promoted this idea and then she didn't disown it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can't say that I heard that comment, not one way or another, but if that is
Got
the
it.
comment that was
Let's
made in the context,
let's
then that's
last few
ignorant.
minutes. Okay, so yeah, last few minutes. Yeah, context obviously
Right,
matters,
right.
but okay, last few minutes. Spot the red flags. Deborah, this is one of the breaking the chains. I think it's on your website. Spot
Mhm.
the red flags that indicate sex trafficking might be happening. I mean, there's a
Right.
bunch of stuff. Do you want to quickly go through or kind of summarize what are the
Yeah.
things that parents should be watching? I mean, you said over 30% are children in our area
Right.
that are being trafficked. So you want to kind of
That we
give
are
us a
seeing
little,
come through our doors
yeah,
personally.
come through our,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I think just to summarize it very quickly is we tell people that look for 3 or more to be present, although anything can be an indicator. And again, make sure that if 3 or more of these things are present, or for whatever reason you have some sort of suspicion that you are reaching out to breaking the chains, or maybe another organization that you might be connected to really vet that and see what the situation may be. And if you'd like to know more, there is a free webinar that is being hosted in honor of my daughter. There's a second nonprofit that I have started, and it's more of a consulting agency, so it's not in competition with Breaking the Chains, and that is Kendra's Cause. And I am hosting Scroll, Swipe, Exploit. And so I would just encourage you, it's free, it's online. It will be, I believe, on December 9th in the evening. Please attend that webinar, because right now technology is a key factor in most cases of exploitation that we are seeing.
Thank you, Deborah. And then finally, kind of some of the programs that you offer on the screen, where the money that you're raising and the $100,000 match is going to, I'm assuming, is going to go to these programs. Could you briefly kind of walk us through when somebody donates to Breaking the Chains, what happens to that money? And maybe briefly tell us how many women or men do you are you helping in our
No, our
community?
average on October 31st of this year, when we turn in our internal numbers, we have 117 active participants. That's in one day. So that just gives you an idea of how many we are serving. We have 14 shelter beds. Very important for people to know. There's a lot of people doing work out here. Breaking the Chains still remains the primary comprehensive service provider, providing all these things. So when an individual walks through the doors at Breaking the Chains, they can come in as an emergency crisis through law enforcement or whatever other referral source, and we are quite literally able to walk them completely through emergency shelter, residential trauma treatment, transitional housing, into long-term housing, employment, educational services, counseling, the full gamut.
Right. I think that wraps it up. Any final thoughts, Bill? Let me see any other comments. Cam Malloy, by the way, says Megan Kelly can pound salt. Okay. Any final comments, Bill?
No, I just want to thank Deborah for coming on and contributing to a great show tonight. And remind the viewers, check out the Breaking the Chains website. And don't forget that you give $1, it will be doubled if you donate between now and the end of the year.
And if I may say thank you to the Assemi family, to Granville Homes, GV Wire, for continuing to make this issue an important issue in our community, and just continuing to put this on the forefront. Lives are being impacted and saved because of you.
Thank you, Deborah. Let's put that slide back up. There we go. So what are you thankful for? Do you have a favorite Thanksgiving memory? Please go to gvwire.com and click on Unfiltered. Submit your very cool Thanksgiving memory, things that you are and we should be thankful for to live in this beautiful country. We're going to air a lot of those messages next Tuesday night, or that will be our Thanksgiving message from GV Wire Unfiltered. With that, that's a wrap. Thanks for watching this show. Deborah, thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts on all things national, international, and local, and announcing the $100,000 match, which is very cool. Again, I want to hats off and shout out to the Shahadi family for coming up with those dollars in these last 6 weeks of the year. Best of luck to you, Deborah, in your endeavors. Granville Home of Hope is around the corner. We're working up the final bugs. Hopefully make a nice announcement coming here shortly. And have a safe week, everybody. Hope to see all of you next Tuesday evening, right before a nice 4-day Thanksgiving holiday. Good night and take care.